Hello there, I'm Azaria Tagaya, and you're watching another episode of Ringgit Sense, the show where we talk about personal finance. Now, in previous episodes, we talked about the importance of having health and life insurance, but how different are they? Will the rising cost of healthcare make your insurance policies cost more? We have with us in the studio today Ramzi Tubasi from the Life Insurance Association of Malaysia and also Muhammad Fikri Muhammad Rawi, the chairman of the Malaysian Takaful Association, to answer our questions. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And talking about health and life insurance, let's start off with the basics. A lot of people may have existing policies that they've bought when they're younger. But some of our viewers, or more so a majority of them, are buying health and life insurance for the first time on themselves. So what's the big difference between life and health insurance? Are there actually any differences at all?
Oh, absolutely. Let's first start by talking about the differences. Life insurance on its own is about someone dying, the breadwinner dying. For example, there's a family and we are all living together. We have expenses. We have things that we do on a daily basis. We have to think about colleges. We have to think about schools and all that. And then the breadwinner passes away. It could be through an accident. It could be through sickness, natural death, whatever may be the case. And once the breadwinner dies, then there is basically an economic loss and a tragic loss or emotional loss. Now, no one can do anything about the emotional loss, but this is where the insurance companies go in when it comes to the economical loss. And then there's the standard of living that the family was used to. And so this is where life insurance comes in, the amount that is paid to the family based on the insurance plan that the breadwinner had would maintain the standard of living that the breadwinner wanted for the family. So they don't have two losses at the same time, which is the emotional loss and the financial loss. On health insurance, all about medical. So basically, as you know, accidents happen, sicknesses happen, we have to go to the hospitals, and the costs, which we'll be talking about later on, are much more expensive. So this is what, again, insurance companies come in to help the families in order for them to be able to enjoy at least the coverage that they would have to bear if they go into the hospitals and clinics.
I see. Okay. Encik Fikri from the Malaysian Takaful Association, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think Ramzi has already perfectly explained the difference between life and health insurance. Okay. So we have life insurance, which is conventional insurance, and we have Takaful insurance. Takaful insurance is an Islamic insurance, and it conforms to Sharia compliance. In general and very basic, the difference between conventional insurance and takaful is three things. One is riba, interest. Two is gambling, maisir. And three is uncertainty, which is garar. So you take all these three elements out of the conventional insurance and you have Islamic insurance, which is Sharia compliant.
What about the costs of these types of insurance? Let's start with you first.
Okay. Now, when it comes to medical, a lot of people always complain that the cost is rising, and that's due to some factors. One is inflation. If you look at Malaysia, last year, I think inflation grew by 11.7%. And this year, they're forecasting to grow around 13%. And that's one that kind of gets to the cost. Another thing is basically the modern technology. You have new equipment, drugs that come in that the hospitals will charge more, and that means the insurance will go up as well. So these are the two things that basically drive costs. But now we're working with the government to see how we can regulate maybe the hospitals, because today when you get a bill from the hospital, it doesn't itemize, it just gives you a bill and no one knows where these costs are coming from. So the more transparency these bills are, the better it will be for the client or the patient to know where these costs are coming from. So that's from the health point of view. From life, it's not about expensive or not expensive. It's about when you get the life insurance. The younger you are, the healthier you are, you're going to get a very cheap life insurance policy. And there's so many of them, types of them that salespeople will be able to go through and explain. But the most important thing on life is to make sure that you are healthy and you are young, because the older you get, the more risk that something may happen to you. Or if you are not, if you're young and you haven't gotten anything yet, maybe 2 years down the line, you may get some sort of a sickness, and that will also play a big role of the premiums going up as well.
I see.
So unlike medical, life is about young and healthy.
Okay. So what about Takaful insurance then? How is the cost actually divided among the policyholders?
Right. So you have the life Takaful, which is called family Takaful, and you have the health Takaful. I think in general, as far as health or medical is concerned, I think Ramzi has already pointed out the medical inflation. You can see that increasing trend. That's the medical costs, surgical, what have you. And what insurance does, or what Takaful does, is to provide a coverage to take care of those costs. So naturally, as this medical cost increases due to the reasons of advancement in technology, imperfect regulation of the charges made by the hospitals, as well as I think one thing more is our weaker currency, because most of these products are imported from overseas, right? So it has an impact, and the cost would go up.
Now we want to talk really about the actual cost, how much it will cost. Let's say if someone gets into an accident, it's actually short term. What about a long-term illness like cancer? And it's a young family with young children. How much will this actually cost the family in terms of getting treatment, long-term treatment for the patient?
It is very essential to have a health insurance policy. Let me give you an example. If you take a husband and a wife, 2 children, let's say 6 years, 4 years, statistics show that they average about 3,000 ringgits in expenses on a monthly basis. So imagine me as the breadwinner, I get lung cancer.
Yeah.
I get lung cancer now. If you look at the costs of lung cancer, early detection is about 35,000 ringgits. If I catch it later on, that's about 100,000. So you see 3,000 expense, and now between 35 to 100,000 now that the family has to bear. How are they going to make ends meet? That's why it's always essential to have the health side of it. And of course, I want to always promote life insurance, because life insurance is essential as well, because God forbid this leads to death, the family is also covered to maintain that standard of living that we spoke earlier about.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the highest cases of cancer in Malaysia relates to breast cancer, for example. And if I'm not mistaken, the total cost, which is the full cost, depending, of course, on the level of your illness, it's around 350,000. Similarly, lung cancer, I think it's also around 350,000, and that goes up by the year. And that takes all the treatment, the chemotherapy, and all that. So 300,000, 350,000, and more. That is the cost of a house, something that you save for your lifetime, So if that befalls on the family, on the breadwinner of the family, you can imagine how much the family has to bear on the cost.
What about some people who take insurance and Takaful just as a form of investment? Is it actually a good way of saving up your money? We'll start with you, Mr. Ramzi.
Sure. To me, I never like anybody to take life insurance as a form of investment. Life insurance, first and foremost, is about protection. This is the most important thing. Now, are there investment elements in a life insurance policy? Absolutely. But let me give you a small example to show why it's important to have life insurance before you have any investment vehicle. Today, if I'm just investing, and all I want to do is, let's say, have 300,000 ringgits in 5 years, let's say, in my investment.
Yeah.
And I die tomorrow. God forbid I die tomorrow. What happens to me? What happens to the family? I didn't get that investment, so what's going to happen to the family? With life insurance, we have certain products that would help in investment, but you have also the life insurance cover, which will be there, that you would have spoken with the sales individual, with the financial consultant, and known about what the family's needs are. So that's there from day one, that risk. So as the policy grows, and the more I live, the more that investment is slowly growing within that policy. But God forbid something happens to me and I die earlier, that whatever investment objective I had in mind will automatically be paid to my family. So that's why before we even think about investment, before we even think about anything else, we need to make sure that our family is protected, because there are day-to-day expenses, college, schooling, all that has to be taken into account. Housing, cars, So very important to have life insurance first before we do anything else.
Okay, what about you, Mr. Fikri? What about people who think this is a way to force themselves to save money?
Any source of savings is good investment, if you ask me. But Malaysian Takaful Association, we represent 11 Takaful operators who provides a life product, health product, as well as investments product. Like what Ramzi says, the investment product is protection first. Yes, as far as the customers who are keen to Sharia compliant investment, so this is another form or another variety of investment that they can put their money into. And I think they can be rest assured that it's invested into Sharia compliant assets.
What about some people who say, I don't think I need health insurance because my company has provided it for me. So should they opt for a personal health insurance as well? We'll start with you first, Mr.
Sure.
Fikri.
I think my immediate answer is they need, other than what their company covered, they need other protection. They should start early. Number one, because yes, their company provides them with that protection, but it's only up to their retirement age, which is about 55 or 56 or whatever it is now. Thereafter, you do not have that cover for yourself and for your family. And that is when you want to start looking out for takaful or insurance at a time where your risk profile is high and it's expensive. You should start early with something else, probably when you're 25. And then if you retire, you will have this other coverage for you.
And also, just to add to that, sometimes we change jobs. Sometimes we're let go from a job. So we lose that coverage. And if we lose that coverage, it's then we're not covered anymore. We have to go get something. And if, God forbid, health-wise, something's wrong with us, it's going to be very tough to get a medical insurance product or even a life one if you have some sort of a sickness or disease. So like you mentioned, we have to do it very early in the process, young and healthy.
Okay. Now you mentioned, both of you guys mentioned just now that the longer it takes for you to get a policy, it actually costs more.
Yes.
What kind of situations do they take into account, aside from pre-existing conditions? Do they take into account lifestyle, like smoking and other factors such as that?
Yeah. Many companies will take that into account, of course, because when you are filling out the application, they will ask you questions like, do you smoke? Do you do whatever? They will ask you questions to know about yourself. Do you have any sicknesses, diseases? And they will list them, and then you have to check whether you have it or not.
What if you don't have diseases, but it's actually hereditary?
Well, that may play a factor, but as long as you are healthy, it will not. Now, there are certain levels, like it could be a substandard, standard policy where the premium or the monthly amount that you're paying may be a little bit more depending where you are, how healthy you are, how's your lifestyle. Because remember, the underwriter will have to look at all that and then assess what is the best way for you to go through paying your monthly installments.
Your final advice to our viewers?
The first thing you will ever do or should ever do as the first part of your investment is secure that you have a life insurance policy and a medical policy. After you secure those two plans, then you look at investments and anything else that you want to do in the future. Because these are the two essential things for the future for you and your family. That's the best gift you can ever give to your family, are those two insurance policies.
The best gift, I think that's correct. Okay, thank you so much for joining us today on Ringgit Sense, Mr. Ramzi Tubasi from the Life Insurance Association of Malaysia, and also Mr. Muhammad Fikri Muhammad Rawi, the chairman of the Malaysian Takaful Association. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, guys, hopefully our discussion today has managed to inspire some of you, those of you who haven't had insurance yet, to get yourself covered or at least go and get some professional advice on the matter. We're going to be taking a short break. When we come back, we have more with you on Ringgit Sense.